Hello everybody, welcome back to Right to the Source. We're on episode 15. My name is Robin Harrison and I'm here as ever with the C3PO to my R2D2. It's Mr. Ed Birkin. Ed, how are you today?
I am well, thanks, Robin. I was going to say your little comparisons get more obscure, but I imagine most people watch that rubbish, which is a multi-billion-dollar franchise.
I think
Never
most
really
people have
got
seen
into that.
Star Wars, yes. It's quite popular. It caught the zeitgeist.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I've seen clips of it, but it's never made me want to sit down and go, "Oh, that looks good. Why don't I watch it?" I mean, but
It's
George
a great,
Lucas and billions of dollars, and didn't
yeah, I mean
Disney
the
buy
first
it?
three films are great.
Yeah, I mean, then again, well, I suppose looking at it now is a bit unfair. It's a bit like I watched Jaws recently, and it is just the special effects are pretty terrible. But then again, it is from no,
Say something.
yeah,
This is a great film though. Jaws is a kind of film that if you see it on television, no matter what point it's in, you watch the rest of it.
yeah. It's also been blamed for people effectively being scared of and then hunting and killing grey whites.
They are terrifying.
Yeah, but mainly because of that. Apparently, before they just got on with their life.
They still eat people.
Yeah, but it wasn't such a big thing about it. And whereas now it's like, oh, let's kill the great whites. And are they endangered? I don't know, maybe.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think we're endangered from them in certain contexts.
I'm pretty sure population's exploding. But we're in danger of not talking about gambling.
See what you did there? Look
Yeah,
at that. Nice
yeah.
little segue, yes. So we do have a guest coming up in this episode. We will cut that in later after some very judicious editing. But
It
before
kind
that,
of went a bit off, even for us, it went very off track.
yeah, some of that footage will never be shown to the world.
No.
No.
And it
If it
makes my language seem very polite.
if it wasn't on a computer, I'd take it outside and burn it. I think it's safer. I don't think the world is ready for that that podcast.
No, but John was a great guest, and in between the banter that we had, most of which will never be heard, he made some very good points. And look, let's just tell people, we were talking about the flawed, data poor, misleading, put in other adjectives article that Gordon Brown wrote about why we should increase the remote gaming duty to 50% in the UK. That will be explained by later in the podcast. At the
Yes,
moment,
it
we're
will.
going to talk about the countries. What countries did we? You should know what countries we talked about because you messaged me half an hour ago saying, "Ed, what countries are we talking about?"
Yes, I do. We were talking about Korea and we were talking about Canada,
South Korea.
South Korea, Korea.
The national dish being
Kimchi. I had some on Saturday night at a very good Korean restaurant called Dongnai in Bristol. It was very nice. It was part of a sort of spread of that they call banchan, where you've got lots of different small dishes. It was really good. Very big fan. So if you're in
well.
Bristol, go to Dongnai. It's an excellent restaurant, or their sister restaurant, Bokman. Both come highly recommended. But yeah, so
I didn't think we were allowed to do endorsements on here. You're getting kickbacks. I'm sure the listening population in Bristol's pretty small, but you can't be doing this stuff.
Bristol has a small but perfectly formed a hub of gambling professionals, I'll have you know. Yeah, there's a few people down here.
If we're going to be doing kickbacks for promoting things on the show, then let me know.
Believe me, I got no money off that bill. So,
Right.
shall we start off then with Korea?
Okay, so population.
A population, I'm not sure actually. I think we had it at the end of last week.
51 million.
51.
Three bits of gambling: the legal betting, casino, lottery, betting GGR over 3 billion euros. Horse racing's a large part of it. Then you've got the kind of lottery, sports betting, covers all the main sports: football, volleyball, golf, baseball, blah blah blah. And then you have a bit more niche stuff. So there's a smaller part: bicycle, pretty large business, but Kirin bicycle.
Yeah, similar to Japan actually.
It's about racing, and I'm pretty sure we got down bullfighting.
Bullfighting.
So that's on the betting, and on the casinos. So there are how many casinos, Robin, in the country?
I think there's maybe about between 4 and 6, but aside from Kangwon-land, I don't think any of them allow locals in.
Yeah. So there are 18 casinos, but there's it's kind of about four big operators.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hangwon Land is the only one allowed to accept locals. It was foreigner only.
No,
So
interestingly, they did do a foreign, like, I think it was a special area. It was like a foreigner-only trial.
in Kangwonland, they have very few foreign visitors, but yeah, out of the casino market, 2.2 billion euros GGR in 2024. Kangwonland accounts for 40%, over 40% of that. It's more table games weighted. As it tends to be in Asia, so US, you're looking at 70% plus on slots. It's 60% table games. And actually, the Kangwonland is planning on opening a second casino in 2028, which will what's going to add 50 tables, which is 25% capacity, and 250 gaming machines, which is another 18% capacity. So total tables to 250 and gaming machines to 1,610. So there you go.
Yeah. I suppose a few interesting things in that market. Foreigners only rule. So that's similar to, for example, Vietnam, which had a trial of allowing locals into, I think it might have just been one property, but then that was meant to be over a 3-year period, but then that was kind of cancelled earlier. Well, Kangwon Land, obviously the market leader. In terms of these other foreigner-only casinos, I mean, how does performance compare? Like, is there any kind of standouts, or is it, or are these other 17 properties, I suppose, are these like, is revenue kind of like markedly lower?
I mean, it's markedly lower by the fact that you've got one casino that has over 40% of the markets and another 8 to 17 that have 60%. So we get a total figure supplied by the regulator, but we do get a split. We have Auto Tour, so it's Dream Tower, Gran Korea Leisure, and Paradise Co. Do all report as listed companies. What are they looking at? I mean, they're large parts of it. I'm try and get some of the actual figures now, but there are some bigger ones. The foreign only ones are bigger and more resort, and there are smaller ones that are definitely not evenly split. But yeah, we do in our model have data for the different properties of those three big operators, as well as Kangwon. And actually, I keep using the word interesting in a loose sense, but the performance between the properties does vary. Like each year, each quarter, you see actually this one's done really well and that one's not. Why that is, I don't know. I'm sure someone with more knowledge would look at and go, well, obviously, that's because they're hosting this and they're doing that. But yeah, so if you look at Gran Korea Leisure, they've got 2 of their 3 are in Seoul. One's at the Hilton, one's at the Gangnam, and one's in Busan Lotte, or something that may be pronounced completely separately. But even between those properties, if I look at, let's say, July data, so the one in Gangnam, I mean, this is, let's say, gross win, 19 billion? Yeah, billion, Korean won. The one in the Hilton was 13 billion, and the Busan Lotte was 6.6 billion. So even within that, just that one company, their top performing casino is generating 3 times the revenues of their bottom performing casino. So there is obviously a significant disparity across them.
Okay, that is actually quite interesting. I was preparing to tune out there, but I actually thought that was quite an interesting fact to bring up.
I think we need to find an alternative word to interesting. Niche.
Intriguing.
It's like remotely informative.
Informative. I think that's a great tagline for this podcast.
Yeah.
So,
and in Canada.
Yes, Canada. Oh, Canada.
National
dish poutine, the home of Rush, Justin Trudeau, Mike Myers.
And, although it's not the home of it, I actually started watching an NHL documentary.
All right.
Started off, that's what I'm saying. It's Canada. As in the documentary first bit did. And I always knew that ice hockey was, they take some hits. But I was like, but watching it is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is tough.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they play a lot of games as well. It's not like the NFL, where there's not many games, you have time to recover. And also, like, getting in the NFL, fine. But you get hit when you're on ice, and you just legs go, or you get hit against the wall, and then if that's not enough, you just take off your helmet and start hitting each other. And then you have that many games as well. I mean,
it's
tough.
Absolutely brutal. I mean, there's quite a few sports like that. Like baseball, the volume of games that they play is ridiculous.
Yeah, but you stand there and catch a ball. I mean,
yeah, but the strain and so you think about the pictures. There's a lot of kind of examples of pitchers having what they call kind of Tommy John surgery, which is kind of ligament. And there you go. You came prepared. Well done.
I got this at a Pittsburgh Pirates game when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
Never been used in baseball context.
Never been thrown in anger. The risk of Tommy John surgery then.
Look, okay, fine. Pitchers have some repetitive thing from pitching, yeah, fine. But it's not. It's not the other. That's why That's why they play 100 and something games a year, because it's like when even the batters, it's like you swing it. Yeah.
There's a lot of injuries that can happen. Mainly for pitchers. Like you think about the way that they throw and the amount of times that they throw. That puts a lot of strain, especially when you start it young. But I mean, ice hockey, I mean, like if you've ever been to a game, when if they smash into the sidings, like you understand why they need the padding.
So, New York Mets right fielder, Juan Soto.
Juan Soto, yes.
Juan Soto. Okay, he's projected to earn 126 million for taxes and agent fees. This is largely due to his 15-year, $765 million contract with the Mets.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, that is just...
He is a phenomenal player. He's not... This hasn't been, the sort of like superstar breakout season. But the thing is, seasons are so long. And you kind of saw this with Francisco Lindor, came in a massive contract. And they take time, they build up, and it's like the length of the contract, that kind of reflects the fact that players are given time. It's a lot less short term than something like football.
Yeah, they're given time because they don't, you're catching a ball. Okay, fine, yeah, pitcher's going to get some stuff, but even with a hitter, yes, bear in mind I am, I don't know as much about baseball, but, you can play for a long career because it's not that challenging, let's be honest. It's not physically challenging. For a lot of them, it's obviously if you lose your 100-mile-an-hour, fastball and everything. But as a general rule, there's a reason you can play 100 and something games a season versus 17 in the regular NFL game. I've got no idea how we even got onto this.
No, well, you started talking about NHL, and then because I follow baseball, I just clawed it onto that, so I had a clue what we were talking about, beyond having been to, I can't even remember the name of the team in New York, the Rangers?
What, NHL, yeah?
Yeah, I went to a Rangers game when I was over there.
If anyone wants to give me tickets to a NHL game in Vegas during G2E, please feel free to get in touch.
And you'll get a shout out in the podcast, I imagine.
Yeah, whatever the non-existent lawyers we use for this say.
Yeah. And... Canada,
yes. Canada. Okay, let's go quick. We've got a guest and everything, so we need to speed up.
Yeah, we need to race through. So, I mean, the difficult thing here is we're obviously talking about a lot of different provinces, each with their own monopoly model. Obviously, Ontario is the most mature by virtue of it being the only one that's actually legalised, but I think for the most part, that regulation, I'd be interested to see what the figures say, but it feels like it's been a success. It feels like the market is highly competitive. It feels like there hasn't been, the kind of slightly kind of aggressive pushback on the regulated industry. However, having said that, the way it regulated it was sort of in the way that the US effectively said, all right, nothing has happened until we cross this line, and then everything starts. Canada effectively opened up the licensing model to the grey market competitors.
Yeah, which I think is important. Oh, I noticed I haven't got my light on to make myself look good for the YouTube one. There we go. I think it's important because I was having this discussion about New Zealand. If you kind of say to anyone who wants to get a license, they have to go through this period where they have to kind of stop operating. Then it means players who are operating with them now will go to other offshore sites who aren't interested in getting licensed. Hence, they're still accepting players. So if you want to bring players on shore, you then have to kind of get them back off there and re-sign them up. Yes, if you're let's say New Zealand, if you're Sky City, okay, and you're saying it's unfair that someone comes on shore and they've got all the customer list, we can't compete, it's not fair, they should have to re-sign their customers. I get that argument, but in terms of the greater good of... And let's be honest, Sky City have their own customer list anyway from land-based. But for the greater good of getting as many people on shore as possible, you need to have people who are getting licensed to have the customers already. I think with Canada it's a bit different because the only competition was with OLG. And they're already operating anyway. So it wasn't like OLG is saying, we don't have anything and it's unfair. So it's like, well, we're now just all competing on the same way. So I think it made it easier to do that. The likes of FanDuel, DraftKings, some of the US brands, have gone, hang on, we weren't operating because we weren't allowed to. I mean, it's the same rules as everyone else. But yeah, and I think the surprise there for them, not for me, is that they just thought, oh, look at us in the US, we dominate, and we'll just go in and just take all the market. And it's like, one, it's a different product, and two, you're competing against very good people who've already been there. So guess what? Bet365 still has by far the largest sports wagering market share in the market. It's been there for ages.
Yeah.
I don't give a crap what FanDuel and DraftKings are doing in the US. You're not going to compete with them. By the way, did you see recently that Bet365 has had its most successful quarter in the US sports wagering? I think you remember I said that they're my one to watch in the US and they're going to keep taking share. I've got a lot of stuff wrong, but keep watching.
You get that one right. Hold on to it. Hold it tight.
Yeah, so it has been successful. We've got 90% onshore channelization. And if you compare that to the national market excluding Ontario, then the channelization there is currently running at 37%. Betting, so we think that betting's only about 16% onshore. Other lotteries have much of the betting. And they're doing better on the gaming. We've got 43% for the gaming. Some of them are pretty successful on the iGaming. But there's just very little they can... I think they'll really be able to achieve to get that. We still have the offshore growing.
So one of the things I'm curious about is when you look at, for example, an Alberta, which is obviously coming in hot with the regulation, or even, British Columbia, which still, is still a monopoly. I mean, I kind of feel that the Lotto Quebec will hold its monopoly to the better end, but you kind of feel like BC could go, Alberta is going. I'd be interested within those two provinces in particular, how much of that grey market activity is Ontario licensees?
Again, I could have given you a pretty good estimate if you've actually given me the heads up beforehand. Let's see, from our main operators, let's quickly have a look at so our main offshore, and I'm not going to name the main offshore operators on here, legal, blah, blah, blah. Sign up to our data to get more information. So, in no particular order, Supergroup, obviously licensed in Ontario.
Okay.
I don't know if they're licensed in Ontario or not. 365, yes. I'm going to make sure I'm not just reading down a list. HBI Bet, I imagine they are. Other ones on the list. Leo Vegas, I imagine they are. Stars will be 888, Sports Interaction. Ones I assume aren't. BC.game, Tony Bet, I'm not sure. Powerplay, maybe. Bodog, I think it's unlikely. PlayOjo, Rubet, Gamdom. So, I mean, depending on what we think about Stake, where they're licensed in Ontario, but you're looking at a good, I'd put it at 50% of the market. More so if you include Stake, who is licensed in Ontario.
Interesting.
How do you not know if they're licensed in Ontario, Robin? That's your role. No, it's not operating in Ontario. There you go.
Okay.
But it's no surprise. Then this is a completely different one. But that Stake's biggest, I believe, celebrity endorser, what do you want to call it? Drake, who apparently is Canadian.
Is he there?
And when I talk about this, someone put on one of his songs, and I kind of vaguely recognise the type of music.
Wow. You've not seen Star Wars, but you can recognise the Drake song.
Well, I don't know if I recognise the song, but I was like, yeah, it kind of sounds vaguely familiar. I don't know why it's not on my country music playlist.
No, it's not Morgan Wallen or Hank Williams.
But apparently he is, he does a lot of this stuff on the social media, the TikTok-y things, and, it's
the TikTok-y things.
That Stake have moved, I won't say steadily, but significantly up the charts in our estimates of the non-locally licensed Canadian market.
So, before we bring in our guest, stat of the week.
Stat of the week relates to Sweden.
Does it now?
So
what's happening there?
Loads of stuff, mainly flat pack furniture and meatballs and saunas, I believe. But in the gambling world, I had a question from a long-term subscriber. Said, why are we seeing channelization in Sweden go down? Different things have happened, but really I was then looking at who we estimate as the biggest offshore operators. So the top 5 offshore operators in Sweden, 4 of them are what you would class as crypto casinos. It doesn't mean that all of that's crypto, as we said on the last episode during my rant, that a lot of their revenues can be non-crypto. 4 crypto casinos. These top 5 generated 29% of offshore activity in 2024. This is based on web traffic volumes, not in GGR. Versus those same 5 represented only 6% in 2020. And their traffic from these 5 is up 25 times in the past 4 years. So a 25-fold increase in visits to their sites. Now, obviously, other ones would have dropped down, but it's. I just thought it's just a, new, whether it be crypto, non-crypto, casinos going there targeting these markets, and you can, in 4 years isn't a short period of time, but they're able to get significant traction and be getting significant volumes of people to their sites. I just thought, we're not talking about someone who's, changing regulation and seeing traffic increase 5%, 10% a year. I mean, this is like big numbers. Yeah, these top 5 who were a tiny fraction of the market, almost 30% of it now in 2024. So that's my stat of the week. What is your story stroke fact of the week?
So my story of the week is a piece by Jess Marquez on Bally's Corporation. Now, Bally's is a fascinating company because it just seems to always pull through. And, it takes these big bets, some might say wild bets, and yet somehow, it can be down at points, but it's never out. So it's a really fascinating piece by Jess, kind of just going through the kind of current situation. Like, it's a really good bit of analysis. Came out ahead of their results, which were the first in quite a while, because they stopped reporting to the market for a period. So I'll put a link in the podcast blurb. Definitely worth a read. Highly recommend it.
Okay. Right. Why don't we end with picking more random countries?
Yes, let's pick some more random countries, and then we will bring in our special guest.
As we're talking about Bally's, I don't know whether given the Bet365 episode was pretty well listened to, whether we should do a random country and a random operator, but I think we're just going to end up pissing off all the industry, aren't we? Talking about the operators. We'll end up saying negative things, no doubt.
Shall we give it a go?
We could do.
We'll behave ourselves.
You know what? We're not here to make friends, so let's.
I think that ship sailed a long time ago.
Right, let's just do it. Right. So one country, one company.
Yeah, let's do random country generator. What are we going for next week?
Cooler market. I don't think we have data on Cambodia, which the currency is.
I actually have no idea.
Cambodian riel. The capital.
Phnom Penh.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it because I can. Population.
30 million.
16.
Okay.
Dish.
I have been to a Cambodian restaurant before.
Of course you have. Shout out to them. Best Cambodian restaurant in the UK, yeah? Based in Bristol.
It wasn't actually. It was when I lived in France. So it was quite a few years ago. I'm trying to think what I ate there. I think there was some form of minced chicken involved.
It's a mock, whatever that is.
What's a mock?
This show. Fish mock is a sweet and savoury steamed fish curry.
Sounds quite nice. Okay. So next week we'll talk about Cambodia, and what company are we doing?
So I don't have a random country generator, so I'm going to have to look at the companies that we come on the HT site and just swing. Does that include... It's just the operators. Do you want a supplier or an operator?
Dealer's choice.
Still an operator. I'll tell you what, give me a number between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
7, because it's Henrik Larsson's number itself.
5, 6, 7. And then give me a number between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. Same reason again.
Okay. Nagacorp.
Nagacorp, which I think, strangely enough, might have operations in Cambodia.
If it does, then this is going to just seem like the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, amazing. So we're going to talk about Cambodia and we're going to talk about Nagacorp.
It owns the largest integrated gaming and entertainment resort in the Mekong region. For IPO on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in 2006. Oh my God, the first Cambodia-based company listed on a foreign stock exchange. Okay, now that's
spooky. Right, I'm going out to buy a lottery ticket. That's spooky.
Okay,
cool. Also means there is data out there because they're reporting to the market. So perfect.
Well, I've got a financial model on them. That's why I chose a company from the HT's website.
Oh yeah, that would help. But there's also there's other information out there as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there's someone igamingbusiness.com. Right, guests, and we can talk about tax rates in the UK market.
Yes. Today with us we have a podcasting veteran of the gambling industry. We have Mr. Jon Bruford.
Hello.
So yes, Gordon Brown has made an intervention into the debate on gambling taxation and has called for essentially a 50% rate on the industry. Now, obviously, this is problematic for a number of reasons. First of all, let's be honest. On one side of this kind of reform campaigner side, you have people looking to bring in restrictions on the industry which limit the availability and the visibility of the product. That ultimately means there's going to be less revenue from the industry. On the other side, you have people saying, oh, it's this golden goose, just tax it more. It doesn't, it doesn't really kind of make any kind of logical sense. You can't, kind of introduce kind of restrictions to whittle down like revenue generated from the industry, and then on the other side say, oh yeah, there's all this money to tax. And then on top of that, that with, I think it was a Social Market Foundation, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but their view is that raising the tax isn't going to have an impact on the black market. And that just seems borderline insane to me. I mean, what other sector do people say, well, there might be a risk from increased criminality? And the response is, well, let's just wait and see. Let's just see what happens. Let's see if the criminals come in. It's like on that level, there's an element of just kind of like kaleidoscopic thinking going on. And then, like, even the article, I had a look at it this morning to actually go through some of these tax rates. And the countries that he cited as having higher tax rates. I mean, the Netherlands, companies are leaving the market. There's a lot of evidence that restrictions, higher taxes, are pushing people towards illegal operators. Then he mentions Austria. That's a monopoly. Pennsylvania, it's only in slots, but that's one of the highest tax rates in the US. And in Delaware, it's a monopoly. So these aren't really viable, comparisons.
So on that, and I think so. He says 50% in Pennsylvania, which is true, but that's on net revenue, first of all, not gross revenue. Okay, so straight away, they're taking off bonuses, so that's down to 40%, which is still high, but hey, you're just ignoring that. There's also, I think, at the last count, 18, maybe 22, 18, I think, online operators in Pennsylvania. In the UK, there's 2,400 and something. So just the market, first of all, ignoring the bonusing issue. Secondly, is ignoring the market structure. And thirdly, the Netherlands, which is at, say, 34%, 34.8, I think, and he's calling 50. There's an interesting thing put out by the KSA, the Dutch regulator, on this only last week about the impact of it. And they say, quote, and it's talking about how land-based is closing, people are moving offshore, quote, and this is a sensible regulator who is having to enforce stuff put in by the government. A financially driven measure like gambling tax is at odds with the policy objective of offering players more protection. If we want to offer players a protected gaming environment in the future, this requires serious, responsible providers. A financially sound legal market is essential for this. That is, as far as, I think we all agree, player protection is the most important thing. And everything else that he's just put in that is complete bullshit. He says, oh, it's less than the 80% tax on cigarettes. Hey, going to a different website is very different to getting illegal cigarettes. And there's a news article recently about all these shops that have been done with underground tunnels getting illegal cigarettes. Now, if people are going to be doing that, going onto an unlicensed website is a piece of piss. So I think we all agree it's a load of rubbish. But let's say John rant, because I ranted last week. It's been amusing to hear your slight rant, Robin. But now we've actually got a guest who's on the podcast as well.
We've had guests who are not from Clarion before.
Right. I think it's quite important to remember the historical context of Gordon Brown's relevance in all of this, right? Because, of course, in the UK, the government reviewed, the 1968, was it, laws, and they're like, hang on a second, this needs sexing up. We need to do something that's freshly out of date, which they did, of course, in 2005. Not fit for purpose when it came in. But as part of that, there was the plan for... It was kind of looking at casinos, looking at the need for casinos compared to population as much as anything. So, for example, there were no casino licenses for Shropshire, unsurprisingly. But it was looking at small, medium and large casinos, plus possibly, I think it was more than one super casino at the time when it was first put out there. And then that was when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. And Blair, of course, stepped aside. Although, did he really step aside? Because, of course, they famously, when Brown was the Chancellor and Brown was in number 11 Downing Street, they swapped flats because Blair liked the flat in number 11 more than he liked the one in number 10. Anyway, so Brown steps into the main role. And I have no issues with Gordon Brown. He seems like a very decent guy on the whole. But, and this, he is talking out of his arse. And he flagged this when he came into power. And I said this when he took the reins. I said, he's a Presbyterian. He comes from a religious family. His dad, I think, was a Presbyterian minister. This is through him like a stick of rock. And he spoke about his moral compass, which sadly has now entered, the lexicon. But he came in and he made a mess of something that all of the licenses in the plan as it started out were never going to be taken up. Not a chance in hell. A lot of those places, not viable. Casino industry knows that. That's why there aren't casinos there already. But he came in and, before he came in, all the talk was super casinos come down to one, let's put it in Blackpool. Now, Blackpool makes sense. It's already known as a resort. It's already a place where even today families still go. But it's also, much of Blackpool and the Fylde is very, very depressed. And it's an area which is set up for hospitality. It's an area that's set up for people to come and visit. And it has centuries of that. And rejuvenation there would have been wonderful. It would have been absolutely perfect. So instead, they then move it to East Manchester, a place where people only visit if they really need drugs. Do you see the difference? It's a little bit flawed because it's like the one at the Ricoh Arena in Coventry. It's like the one at the NEC. There's no locals market because the area around it has nothing. The area around it is impoverished. And if you've got no locals market in an impoverished area, why would people want to visit? I mean, there's got to be more than one reason to visit, right? That's why the casinos in Birmingham have worked pretty well. That's why Asper's in Newcastle worked so well for so long, because they're part of a larger entertainment destination. In East Manchester, your options are a little more limited. But apart from that, your entertainment is a little bit slim pickings, shall we say, unless you want to get mugged. And I'm not dissing the people of East Manchester.
It does sound like you are a little.
But yeah, I come from a shitty area. Do you know what I mean? I know what's there. In fact, I once carried a friend through the roughest part of Manchester because he was absolutely shit-faced. I had one guy here who I was propping up while he could still walk, and I had another guy over my shoulder. And I think the only reason that I didn't get mugged is because people probably assumed I was kidnapping them. But anyway, that's by the by. So Brown's got history, and he's got history of not understanding this at all. However, I don't think he's come into this unprovoked. He's been invited to comment. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't just popped up and said, actually, I'd like to, But the thing is, I think what we're about to see is, and I'm going to use a term here that I'm not really sure applies, but I think in years to come we will use this term. I think what we're about to see and what the government is preparing us for is a bit of Trumpian politics, which is saying, screw you industry, let's have 50% and then backtrack and say, well, okay, we could be more reasonable and just go to 35, which then seems great to everybody. We say, look, we've been a moderate government. Aren't we kind? We didn't completely wipe out the industry overnight and push everybody offshore. We found a balance. Except the problem with this model is that applying a flat rate to all gambling just doesn't work, and it doesn't make any sense because the costs of supplying all gambling are different. The structure of look at horse racing. Like, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, horse racing, it gives so many jobs. If you've ever known anybody that works in a stable, you know somebody that is working for less than minimum wage. I guarantee it. Like, where I'm from, there's a local hunt. And on the local hunt on Boxing Day, every day, all the staff are shaking buckets. And the buckets are asking people for money to pay them because some of them aren't even paid. It's like, what, you want me to pay you so your wealthy landowner boss can keep dicking about on a horse? No, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, got slightly sidetracked there. But also, I do know the people that run the hunt where I'm from, and they are actually really lovely people. Really nice. Although one of them has an Arsenal Rolls Royce. It was a gift from a friend. This is the air they breathe. But it was given to him it was a joke birthday present, and it's a Rolls Royce with an Arsenal vinyl wrap over it.
Is he a Spurs fan or something?
I didn't want to ask because my mind was blown by somebody giving somebody else a Rolls Royce for a laugh. Anyway.
Do you know?
No.
That Wayne Rooney left Everton and got married, had 3 kids, won 16 trophies, went bald, had a hair transplant, became Man U's top goal scorer, returned to Everton, left Everton to the MLS, became manager of Derby, got relegated, became Birmingham manager, got sacked, became manager of Plymouth, got sacked, became a pundit. And in all that time, Arsenal still haven't won the Premier League. So actually, I think it's quite a good joke.
There's a very big commitment to the bet.
But look, back onto gambling. My big issue with this article is a data one. Because quite frankly, he's using data and half-truths to try and make a point. As you say, he's ignored the fact about GGR versus NGR in Pennsylvania. He's handpicked a few markets. They say one of them's monopoly, one's just a very successful game market in Pennsylvania that actually, as you say, the tax rate is much lower than GGR tax rate anyway. And it's got a handful of participants. So guess what? When you're sharing that market size between 18 people rather than between 2,500, it makes it easier. He's comparing the tax rate on non-online products such as whiskey and cigarettes, which is a lot harder to get contraband illegal stuff compared to online. And then he's just kind of shoehorned it in. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to actually raise revenue or reduce the amount of gambling? Because cigarettes, the tax is there because they want people to stop smoking, pretty much. If they want people to reduce gambling, one, we know it doesn't work. It just moves them offshore. The market probably shrinks a bit, but you have large offshore seepage. And then two, you're not going to be raising the revenue anyway to go. And apparently this is a magic thing to solve child poverty, which is shoehorned.
That's one thing that bothers me slightly, because that's a structural issue that takes a lot to address. And then there's this magic sticking plaster that's gambling.
Gambling gets blamed for creating poverty, and now it's being touted as the cure. That's a government that is not accepting its role in creating poverty. And I appreciate this Labour government was always going to be screwed no matter what it did when it came in, because of the previous Labour government, who created no end of problems, and I'm talking about Blair and Brown, but also the Tory rule in between that. They just inherited crap on crap. They need a minimum of 2 terms to make any meaningful change. I don't think they're going to get 2 terms. I want to just bring one thing up about Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is actually a really interesting market to suggest, because Pennsylvania actually has a massive illegal slots problem. And I noticed that they're not commenting on that.
The skill-based games, like the physical machines.
Yep. And it's big money. In Pennsylvania, if I'm right, I'm pretty sure I am, Pennsylvania is A, where it started, and B, where most of the manufacturers are. Because when you've got a market that's gone to the expense of normalization, and I mean normalization as in establishment of a market rather than, this is normal, which any new industry has to do in any area, then you'll always have these sketchy outliers riding on those coattails because somebody else has done the work. I tried to launch a running magazine once because I knew that the newsagent would have to put it next to Runner's World, and I knew that Rodale, as it was, would pay premium for their shelf space. So I'd get premium shelf space just because my magazine was also about running. That's basically the same principle.
It's been lovely to have you on. If you don't listen to it, do listen to the Gambling Fellas podcast. It is very good. It occasionally has some interesting industry luminaries on it, and of course it's co-hosted by the always excellent Fintan Costello.
It's true, it's worth it for Fintan.
With his lustrous mane of hair. And so a huge thank you for Jon Bruford joining us as our 4th guest.
Yeah, and now we've had the same number of non-Clarion guests as Clarion guests. And it means we can probably do another month without having to find anyone else to interrupt our flow.
Our flow?
I mean, add insight to our ramblings.
Yeah, I mean, flow, I think, is pushing it a bit. But, it's been a lot of fun. It has, if you're watching this when it's live, it has also been a lot of work to edit. So, thank you very much for your time.
No one's watching it when it's live, are they?
No, absolutely not. Can you imagine?
We can maybe do that. If we get it good enough, or popular enough, it's already amazing. We could sell tickets to a live show. How cool would that be?
I'd be interested
what's his name? They do it on the overlap, whatever. Gary Neville and Roy Keane and Jamie Carragher.
But to watch them sit around a table and talk. I am actually going to see a live edition of a podcast.
Yes, right, that is our aim. We're going to do a live
All right, okay, yeah, a live edition of the podcast.
We could sell other rights. I know. Do I be owning the rights to this?
I would hope so. I wouldn't trust it in either of our hands, would you?
Maybe we have to offer them first refusal for the live edition at ICE.
Are we back to you finding your way onto the main stage at ICE?
Oh, yeah, like you used to say, because on the main stage. Do you know how upset, if anyone from the ICE team was actually listening to this, do you know how upset they would get about the idea that their precious show was going to get tarnished by us two talking crap for 45 minutes?
Yeah. But anyway, on that note, we had definitely better go. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back talking Cambodia and Nagacorp. Couldn't have planned it out better. On the next episode of Right to the Source with Robin Harrison and Ed Birkin. See you in the next one.